are looking for jobs? Do people look at them? How does it work? First question is, yes, they're important for multiple reasons. There's two views that I want to bring up today, and one is the obvious one, right? That like you can use it when you are applying for jobs. You can, well, I don't necessarily want to attach recommendations anymore, but having them on LinkedIn, for example, so that people can read them when they look into who applied is a really, really good way to go. So asking people you work with, former bosses, stuff like that, for recommendations are a really good idea. And then also, for example, in my cover letter, and yes, we do use cover letters, it's a good idea to, or in my cover letter, let's put it that way, I use part of a recommendation I once got from a client. And it was like, hey, this client said this about me, and that quote fits directly into the position I was applying for. So that is also a way to actually let the people you're applying for job with, like, show them, hey, this is actually something. This makes sense, right? Um, so that's one way of using recommendations, which, yeah, is super important. Another way that I think is important, and I want to come back to also how to ask for them, because there's also something about that. But something you can also use recommendations for is actually interview prep. This is a tip I got from attending a LinkedIn summit. And I don't remember the guy's name. I'm sorry. I do want to give credit, but I don't remember his name. But a really cool thing is on LinkedIn, you can go in and you can see, hey, if you go into my LinkedIn profile, you can look at, okay, these recommendations Diana got, these recommendations Diana gave. So let's say that you are going for an interview and I am the hiring manager. Then you go into my LinkedIn profile and you will copy all of the recommendations that I gave into ChatGPT. And then you'll ask ChatGPT to analyze all of these recommendations and say, hey, what are the commonalities? What is it that Diana keeps focusing on when she recommends people? Because what that gives you is a way of seeing what that manager really values in their employees. So if I, every time I write a recommendation for someone on LinkedIn, say, oh, I really like that this person is super outgoing and like is super friendly, or whatever it is. If there's like these things that I keep saying and saying and saying, qualities, or I love the like project management skills, or whatever it is, that means that this is something this person values, right? Or in this case, that would be me then. That means that when you're then at the interview, you can talk into these values that this person have, because then you know that this is going to match what the hiring manager actually is looking for. The kind of people that this hiring manager uh, values highly are people with those qualities. So whenever you go to your interviews, look up the potential manager on LinkedIn and look at the recommendations they have given to see if there's any similarities, anything. And of course, you shouldn't sit there and say, oh, I'm just this super outgoing person and I love chatting with people and I think it's the most amazing thing in the world, if you're not. So it's also a question of like looking at which of these things do you actually match. And if you don't match any of it, then it's also basis for you asking questions around this and saying, let's say that you're super introverted and you like having an office by yourself, then that could be a question. So say, how is your office space divided? Do people sit in a like open office space, or do people have their own offices, or how does that work? So use that information to give yourself the opportunity to ask some really good questions, because it's very important to remember that the interviews are not just for the company to know if they want to work with you. It's also for you to know if you want to work with the company. So if you are like, hey, this work environment where they work in an open spaced office, like everyone is together and there's going to be a lot of noise, if that's not for you, then it's better to know that in advance, right? And say, thank you, this was so amazing, but I'm no thank you. So that is a very good tip. And then I want to tell you a little bit about how to ask for the recommendations yourselves, as I mentioned, because the thing is, a lot of the time, it can be really hard to give other people recommendations. And the best way for you as well to get a recommendation is actually to control the narrative, if that makes sense. So if we kind of scale back a little bit and talk about why do you need the recommendation? What is it that you want to do in your career? Then from there, you can better ask for recommendations. So let's say that I know that I want to work with teaching or facilitating, for example. That means that I know that's what I want to go doing forward. So when I ask for a recommendation from a previous boss or maybe even previous colleague, I will ask very specifically what things they would like, or if they could recommend me on specific things like facilitating, for example. So saying that, just move this a little bit, sorry, saying that, hey, Jody, it was so amazing to work with you. As you might know, I am looking for a new job, and it would mean a lot to me if you would be uh, willing to give me a recommendation. I would be very happy with anything you have to say, of course, but if you don't know quite what to focus on, then focusing on my ability to be a good facilitator, at the same time doing one-to-one sessions with people or coaching people, and so on and so forth, that would be amazing. Kindly regards. So the benefits of this is that not only are you getting a recommendation that fits what you want to do going forward, but you're also giving the person who's going to write the recommendation some direction, because most people want to do what you like, they want to help you out, right? So that means that they want to write the recommendation that works very best for you specifically. And that might be a bit hard, right? So if you actually give them the guidance and say, hey, it would be amazing if you would write it on these topics, then they have those guidelines. And then they can go and say, like, for example, I had a colleague once who asked me to write a recommendation, and now I use this as an example right before, and it's a really, really bad example because he asked me to give him a recommendation on his one-to-one coaching. And I'm like, I cannot do that. I can give you on your teaching skills because I've experienced you teach, but I've not been in the room when you have done one-on-one coaching, so I can't really recommend you on that. So that recommendation became focused on the things that I actually could recommend them on. So also when you ask people, remember that it has to be people who actually experienced you with that skill, experience what it is that you can do in one way or another, for them to actually give you a valid recommendation. But it's really like the strategy, especially this is especially important if you want to change industries, because the thing is, when you want to change industries, like going in and having recommendations that focus on what you want to do going forward and the specific tasks that you've been working with that would help you in your forward moving career and your job search, that is when these recommendations become important. I hope this makes sense. So basically, remember, they are super important, the recommendations. You can use them to both put in your cover letter, for example, have them on LinkedIn, people are reading them, but also use the recommendations that the hiring managers have given other people. So go into your LinkedIn profile and find those as well. So that was it for today. This was a bit of a shorter one, but we are on day 25 of 30 live videos from me. So this is really cool. I will see you guys again tomorrow, maybe. If you are looking for jobs in Denmark and you have an academic degree, you're looking for jobs at an academic level, both in industry and in academia, feel free to reach out to me and book a discovery call to see if you are looking for any help or if I can help you. Yes, I am Danish. I'm living in Denmark and I'm helping international job seekers who are looking for jobs in Denmark. So thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate it. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.